Miney. I choose the one that I think I enjoyed the least out of everything.
Okay. Oh, all right. In Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom.
Woke Kathleen Kennedy destroys Indiana Jones 30 years before we even knew what the word woke meant.
Ooh. Well,
There's a clip to take out of context.
oh yes, yeah. All right. Well, I take it this is not your favorite movie in the franchise.
No. So I had never actually seen this movie before this week. So, basically, I just was going through Paramount Plus looking for things to watch, and I said to myself, I've never actually seen this movie. Let's let's give it a go. So sometimes things that have a popular, not so great reputation, I end up liking just fine. So let's give it a spin.
Well, I have to admit I was a little surprised that you had not seen this movie before, but then I realized that sometimes classic movies kind of go by the wayside in your world.
Yeah, and also, I'd seen 1 and 3 a couple of times each, but I guess everybody I knew just wanted to skip this movie.
Well, it's certainly different than the other movies in the franchise, especially 1 and 3. Um, and although I will say I prefer this one over Crystal Skull and Dial of Destiny.
I haven't subjected myself to Dial of Destiny yet. Crystal Skull, there are things in both that I can appreciate. Like this isn't a completely awful movie. It's just like I have problems with it.
Okay, yeah. Well, I guess we should get into those problems. The general plot of the movie, it's technically a prequel because it takes place like a year or two before Raiders of the Lost Ark.
Which
Um,
which makes you wonder what orphanage did he dump off Short Round in?
yeah. um, yeah, so the movie starts off in Shanghai where they have a nice little kind of a homage scene to James Bond where Indy walks into a nightclub wearing a white dinner jacket and he's meeting with these Chinese gangsters because he wants this diamond and they want the remains from a emperor from I can't remember which dynasty it was.
Yeah, it was like
Um,
some little jade thingam.
yeah, and of course, caught up in all of that is Willie Willie Scott, who is played by Kate Capshaw. Um, and she was only cast in the movie because Steven Spielberg wanted to sleep with her, and he did.
And
I'm
it
not
kind of
joking.
showed.
Yeah, yeah. um, and so then action ensues, and then Indy and Willie escape. And by the way, I don't know if you noticed the name of the nightclub in the movie. Um,
No, I didn't.
Club Obi-Wan.
Okay, that's cute.
Yeah.
Uh,
And then they land in the car driving, being driven by Short Round, um, played by Ke Kwan, who most people will also remember him from The Goonies. You
yeah,
know,
and to a today it might be a similar degree. Everything, everywhere, all at once, where he kind of
yes,
stole the show in that one.
yeah, yeah. And for those of you wondering where he was acting wise, he wasn't really acting in kind of between the like 80s and 90s and 2000s and 2010s. Like he was actually mostly doing stunt work. He was a stunt coordinator on a lot of movies. But yeah, so they end up getting on a cargo plane, which I don't know if you noticed Dan Aykroyd in that little cameo there.
Oh, was
Um,
that him with the mustache? I didn't.
yeah. That was him. Yeah.
With that British voice he was doing, I almost thought he was like Eric Idle until I got a better look at him.
Yeah. Um, yeah, that's because I think it was probably a favor to from Spielberg because Aykroyd was in that 1941, I think.
1941, yeah.
Yeah. Um, but then they see the cargo plane is actually owned by the bad guy that they just got away from, and then they're flying over, and then they get over the Himalayas, and then the pilots on the plane just decide they're just going to dump all the fuel and jump out.
Which, boy, that is an expensive and circuitous method of execution.
Yeah,
I mean, so Indiana Jones has always been a little bit ridiculous. Um, I'm going to take a couple steps back. So
okay.
first off, having him have an opening scene like that in that environment, it's like a seedy nightclub. The movie starts off with a protracted scene of Willie Scott and a bunch of backup singers singing "Anything Goes" in Chinese.
Yeah,
Which that was fun. Like it definitely set the time. It definitely set the environment. It was interesting seeing Indy in that environment. I believe he had a white suit on,
yeah.
and it just felt like he was a very different character, which isn't necessarily a bad thing because. And this is something I've noticed over time is that in a lot of franchises, the second movie is often the one that feels the most unlike everything else. Because it's like you have your first movie, then you have a second movie where you kind of experiment, and the third movie you've kind of nailed down what people respond to.
Yeah, and Star Wars is a perfect example of that, where yeah, you got you had the original that set everything up, and then you had Empire Strikes Back, which was certainly darker than the original, and then you had Return of the Jedi with the Ewoks.
With the Ewoks and another Death Star, so it kind of came back into a familiar mold.
Yeah,
Um, but it isn't like a universal rule or anything, but it's a frequent pattern. So it's like,
yeah,
okay, you would expect Indy to be starting off in like, I don't know, some Chinese temple or something, but it's cool to see him in a different environment. You wonder why this diamond is historically significant enough that he's willing to trade ancient imperial artifacts for it, but that's not terribly important. It's just a MacGuffin to set up the action scene.
right. Yeah, and and then of course the odd part too, which I don't think ever really, which never gets explained, is that was Short Round driving the car up and then them falling through it, and Indy knowing that it's Short Round, step on it.
Yeah, I think that's the 30s adventure serial ism creeping in, where it's just like that's a little bit of rule of cool.
Yeah.
The other thing that took me aback, and this is not a criticism of the movie, this isn't like anything that affected my enjoyment of it. I'm just a little surprised based on this movie's reputation. Um, by the way, we are going kind of full into spoilers here. I'm like the last person on the planet who hadn't seen this movie, so
Yeah.
just heads up.
Yeah.
The reputation I'd kind of gotten with this movie was that Short Round was going to be the annoying one. He really wasn't.
No, it's Willie. Yeah.
Willie by a country mile.
Yeah.
Like on TV tropes, they have a character called the Load, and boy,
Yeah. And yeah, you messaged me during when you were watching the movie, and you're like, "Oh God, is she in the whole movie?" And I said, like, do you want me to lie to you?"
like oh no,
Oh yeah.
yeah, she's kind of insufferable. So it's like that's kind of where when you said you liked it better than Kingdom of the Crystal Skull, I really had to think if there was anything in Crystal Skull that annoyed me as much as Willie Scott.
Uh, well, I Mutt kind of annoyed me a little in that movie.
Yeah, he would be the candidate, but
Yeah.
uh, But the other thing is that when you haven't actually seen a movie, but you know like a little bit about it, and so you kind of like extrapolate things in your head, and you think you have a sense of what the movie's about.
Yeah.
The way that Harrison Ford usually plays Indy, he's usually kind of gruff, right? And it usually takes him a bit of time to warm up to somebody. I
Yeah.
had thought, okay, I see where this is going to go. He's going to have like this little Chinese orphan boy who he's going to begrudgingly help one time, and he can't leave him alone. And by the end of the movie, he's kind of a father figure.
Uh,
So it really startled me that no, it's basically that they're partners in crime, literally.
oh yeah, yeah.
Short Round is a great sidekick, actually, in terms of utility.
Oh yeah, yeah. Hey, lady, you call him Dr. Jones.
Yeah, I could see where somebody could find him irritating, but I don't know. Maybe well, a lot of my best friends growing up were Chinese, so his accent reminded me a lot of people's parents that I grew up with.
Yeah.
So it's like, okay, that doesn't feel entirely out of keeping.
Yeah. Yeah. Um,
Um, so yeah,
but
so yeah, getting over my startlement.
yeah, yes. Yeah, so they so as Indy, Willie, and Short Round, they jump out of they get out of the plane using a life raft, which wouldn't work, but and then they
We'll be bringing that up again later.
yes, yeah. And they end up in a Indian small Indian village, which has fallen on hard times. All of their crops and everything are dying, and all of their children are being taken by the Maharaji, which is like basically like the leader of or the leader type of leader in India. Oh great, I stepped in it now, didn't I?
I want to say that. So I think Raja is like a term that was roughly equivalent to king. I wonder if
Okay.
Maharaja just means like. Let's find out. A king or prince in Indian ranking above a Raja. Aha.
Okay. So yeah. Yeah, because they're in the
Bangladesh or
no, well, it's the palace.
okay. Yeah.
Bangkok Palace. It's not Bangkok, but it's like Bangkok. It's something like that. And keep in mind, of course, this is the 1930s, so India was still under British rule. So they go to the palace, and then that's when they find out about the Thuggee cult.
Which of course has been gone for like 100+ years now. Yeah.
Right. Yes. Yes. Uh-huh. But they quickly find out that's not the case, and then of course the famous heart ripping out of the chest scene in there, which that's in there, and the reason for the movie's dark tone is because George Lucas was going through a divorce at the time.
Which maybe that's why he was being easier on the kids, because I know he has children, so I don't know if they were caught up in this divorce or not.
Probably, yeah. Although did he have kids with Marsha?
I'm not up in my George Lucas lore.
Yeah, I'm not really either. I know he had I know he adopted some children like in the 90s, but he might have had a kid or two with Marsha. But
yeah, it's very interesting that like again, you would expect his irritation to be with this small child who was trying to foist himself on him. It's like,
yeah.
he's cool with the kid. It's this dumb broad over here who keeps saying stupid things and getting in trouble and screaming and screaming and screaming.
Yeah. Hey Ninja, good to see you.
That was his main source of conflict or interpersonal conflict for the movie.
Yeah, he's like, the problem with her is the noise.
So basically what's going on is the Thuggee cult has revived itself in secret in this palace which had been abandoned but has recently become reoccupied. And they stole the magic stone from the village. They've been stealing the children from the village, and they've been putting them to work in the mines because they're looking for what they're looking for the matching set of stones, as I recall.
Yeah, they had 3 stones and they were looking for the other 2. Yeah. And so then they but then the course then during the course of it, Indy and Short Round and Willie get caught, and then Indy gets drinks the whatever blood of whatever, and then
Kali or whatever.
blood of Kali, and then he gets brainwashed. um,
That was the other thing that was sort of surprising was that in most of the rest of the series, okay, most 1 and 3, one and
Yeah.
three are dealing with Judeo-Christian artifacts, and you can kind of see why. How do I want to put this? You can see why these artifacts could get lost and why they weren't like why somebody else catching them would be a big deal.
Yeah.
In this one, it's kind of like since it seems to be like a skill that the worshippers of the Thug-E or the Thug-E cult have access to.
Yeah.
It's like why haven't they like it seemed like they were I don't know if the Thug-E cult had recently revived itself or if it had just been hiding in the shadows the whole time. But it's like with this power set, it seems like they should have had more of an impact on world history.
Yeah. Yeah. And certainly overthrown the British.
Right. It's like why is this happening in 1935 and not the previous century or so?
Yeah.
Then again, one archaeologist from America was able to defeat the whole group of them, so maybe maybe it's not that powerful as I'm thinking.
Oh yeah. That's certainly true. Yeah.
Yeah, that was. So I think that of all the indie movies I've seen, this might be the one where Harrison Ford had to do the most range of his acting because he's in the most unfamiliar settings.
Yeah. Yeah. He's either he goes from like acting like a spy and then acting like a adventurer, and then obviously like kind of almost like a diplomat, and yeah.
Yeah, it's very interesting because they somewhere dig up for him what looks like his usual college professor clothes. That there was no way he had that on his person.
Oh no.
But what I thought was interesting in that scene where they're basically having the dinner where they're explaining the party or what the general like origins of this palace.
Yeah.
Um, he manages to look very out of place. Like even like the clothes look like they don't quite fit him in a way that even the spy outfit didn't. It's like they're trying to say like this is the real Indiana Jones is the adventurer, not the school teacher.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, and I always kind of got that sense when he was in his professor, outfit in the other movies. He didn't feel comfortable in those clothes.
Yeah, so that was a nice little detail. Let's see. I suspect that this movie completely misunderstands a wide variety of cultures, and that is as far as I'm going to go because I didn't spend the time doing any research to see where they got it wrong. Although I can tell you one thing, there is a scene where they're dangling over a cliff and there's a bunch of crocodiles down below. And I said to
Yeah.
myself, are those alligators? And they were, in fact, American alligators.
Okay. Oops.
Not even Chinese alligators, because then you could go, oh, they were just lost or imported or something. Nope, American alligators at the bottom of this Indian ravine called crocodiles.
Yeah.
I'm guessing that's because what their reptile wrangler could get.
Oh yeah, probably. Yeah.
Um, let's see here. So as far as the back end of the movie is also kind of interesting because you compared it to Kingdom of the Crystal Skull.
Yeah.
I kind of felt like uh, Kingdom of the Crystal Skull. I kind of remember enjoying it up until a point where it's like in the back end of the second act, it just went into action movie mode, and it was like you never had a single second to breathe. And that's
Yeah.
definitely the feeling I got with this movie too.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Yeah, it goes from it goes from like fight scene to action scene, and then another action scene, then another one. Yeah, it's yeah, it doesn't let up.
Right? Which when I was kind of meh on the movie, it was actually a little bit exhausting, but it's like I can't like point to any particular action scene and say this isn't necessary to move it forward, but and it's not like I can say, oh, this would be a perfect spot for a breather moment, but
Yeah, and Ninja says yeah, he remembers this being one of the funnier indie movies, and yeah,
yeah,
I can see that.
it definitely has the most moments I can think of where they're trying to be overtly comedic. Like
Yeah,
like the disgusting banquet with all the bugs and the eyes and everything.
yeah,
As you have
yeah,
Willie Scott screaming and being disgusted,
yeah, yeah.
and being irritating.
Or
Um,
they're trapped in the room where with the spikes caving in, and
yeah,
Short Round's like, I didn't touch anything.
yeah. It's
um,
I'll say that
yeah.
whoever they got to play, let's see, the villain, who was it? Played by Roshan Seth as Chatter Lai. Um, he gave a good performance.
Oh yeah, I remember him. Yeah, uh he played. I had to look it up, but he played Dalsum in uh,
Okay,
Street
uh,
Fighter.
okay, that tracks.
Uh, and the guy who played the British captain, he was in The Shining. He played the previous caretaker of the Overlook Hotel, who unalived all of his family members,
Mm.
and talks to Jack Torrance in his in the this fantasy hallucination. Um, but um, but yeah, I mean, I think this movie. I mean, before the hey Arcos,
Hey,
and
Argus.
he said one of his favorite Harrison Ford movies, but not his favorite indie movie. Okay,
Mm. Well, I guess I'm just willing to be in the minority then and say I didn't really enjoy myself. Like I said, there were things that I appreciated. The thing I didn't expect to appreciate was Short Round himself, the way that they like were mirroring him as the successor to Indiana Jones, which just
yeah.
makes him not being the passing the torch star in Indy 5 an even bigger slap in the face in retrospect.
Yeah, it was. Yeah. And what was even what was even more frustrating is that apparently like they leaked a bunch of like production sketches, storyboard sketches of Indy and Short Round, fighting bad
Ah,
guys together. And it's like
ah, we were this close to greatness.
yeah. uh, yeah. But yeah, but before the last two movies, for me, yeah, this was definitely the weaker of the original three, the original trilogy. For me, I think Last Crusade is probably my favorite.
I've seen Last Crusade pretty recently and really enjoyed myself. I'd have to watch Lost Ark again to decide where I come on in that one. Like right now, I'm
Yeah,
inclined to say Last Crusade just because you got James Bond there, you know.
yeah, well, yeah. Junior.
Yeah, and I will say is that it's not like a hateful movie. It just has honestly, Willie Scott kind of drags it down. The the last scene kind of goes on, or the last action sequence kind of exhausted me. But if I put myself in the mind frame of I've been enjoying myself up to now, and Willie Scott hasn't been ruining it for me, I'd be like that would just be like a nice, long, awesome action scene.
Yeah,
I was just kind of tired out, so
no, yeah,
I would definitely say I can appreciate that they were trying something different with it. Like I said before we got a couple of guests in or a couple of viewers in, I noticed that the second movie of a lot of franchises usually is the most experimental and different from the rest, and this is no exception. So
yeah.
yeah, like I don't begrudge its right to exist. I just probably am not going to watch it again.
Mm. Yeah. Well, the only time I would watch it again is if I'm doing like a marathon of the franchise. But yeah, just watching it standing alone, probably not.
Yep. So I guess it did kind of live down to the reputation it had as the inferior movie of the franchise
Yeah.
until later Lucasfilm and Disney said, "Hold my beer."
Yeah. Yeah. Well, all I can say is if you thought Willie Scott was bad, Fleabag was worse. From at least in my opinion, she was.